Episode 158 of the Interpretation Station is called to order. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of the Interpretation Station. We're having quite a bonanza here at the start of the year. Work hasn't really got started, so I'm just taking advantage of a bit of free time to fire out the old Interpretation Station episodes. Hopefully it'll come in particularly useful to you if you happen to be taking the UN freelance test for the English booth in January, French booth in February, I believe. Anyway, you may want to watch this episode, today's episode, in conjunction with episode 157 of the Interpretation Station, which I released yesterday. So today is the 3rd of January. Yesterday was the 2nd of January. So that episode, if you've got Spanish in your combination. If you've got also Russian in your combination, you will also want to watch this episode in conjunction with what will be episode 159, because all three episodes are taken from the Interpretation Station Sunday at 6 workshop that was held on the 1st of January, where we did statements from the three languages, from Spanish, French, and Russian. But what I've decided to do is to break them up. Rather than have one big episode, I've decided to break them up into 3 smaller episodes to really cover all the stuff that was in those statements that I gave you. There's a lot of information in them. It's slightly new stuff because I hadn't done IAEA material before. Okay, so it's really good to get a grip of that vocabulary that they're going to use. So, like I did, if you watched the Chile episode 157, same thing I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to show you the half an hour or so segment from the Sunday at 6 workshop, where we got through about 2/3 of the Swiss statement, and then at the end, I'm just going to go solo. Sort of site translation through the last page and highlight any important stuff that's in that last page. Is that all clear? Does all that sound reasonable? Okay, so just before we go to the Sunday at 6 episode, just to remind you to please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Please do, especially if you happen to have participated in the Sunday at 6 workshop. It'd be very nice if you could leave me a comment. I do really appreciate the comments under the videos. That's the only price, the only fee the Interpretation Station charges. So I will stop banging on there, and I'll just let you watch the footage, the recording from the Sunday at 6 workshop, and then I'll come back at the end and finish the text off. So it's over to me again. Sorry. So turning to Switzerland, I need a volunteer, please.
Okay.
David?
Volunteer?
Yes.
No, David got in there first, and then we'll come to you, Elsa. Okay. Off you go, David.
Okay. Mr. President, at the outset, I should like to congratulate you on your election as president of the General Conference.
Okay.
We assure you of our full support.
Okay. One thing, just a couple of things. Yeah, so you can say it that way because it's good to have the word, for adresser as well. Like we extend our sincere congratulations, we offer our sincere congratulations. Those are good. So the way that David did it was perfectly fine as well. We congratulate you on your election, but if you want to sound even more formal, if we want to extend to you, to offer to you, nous vous assurons. I often will just say, rest assured of our full support. Rest assured of our unstinting support, or our unfailing support. Go on. Nous tenons à remercier. Yeah.
Okay. We would like to thank the Director General, Mr. Rafael Grossi, for his leadership, as for the high and constant work they have put on in the operational activities of the agency in this difficult time.
Okay, so again, depending on what the circumstances are, I mean, if you're actually in the meeting and they've been every statement probably begins with more or less the same thing, these flowers at the end. You could probably just say, we want to thank DG Grossi for his leadership. If you're in an exam and it's first, you probably want to say it all. Okay, we want to thank Director General Rafael Grossi. Again, just depends on circumstances for his leadership, as well as the Secretariat for the the always high, the ever high quality of their work, and for ensuring the operational activities of the agency in these difficult times. Go on a little bit, do a little bit more, David.
Okay, Mr. President.
You see, but this time I would probably skip that, to be honest. I might leave that out, but I mean, it's up to you. Go on.
Okay. Okay, Switzerland strongly condemns the aggression of Russia against Ukraine, as well as the attack against the Zaporizhia nuclear plant.
Okay. So yeah, for condamne fermement, he said, so strongly condemns, vehemently condemns. I know they often talk about strenuously condemns. So again, it's good to have a few collocations with condemning things against the nuclear plant in Zaporizhia, right? Toutes les parties au conflit.
Okay, all parties must respect the special protection granted to the nuclear plant.
Yeah, so I noticed David left out au conflit, which I think you can do. You know, it's often in English we just talk about the parties, as I say. Sometimes I'll say all the belligerents, when it's a war, the belligerents must respect the special protection granted. That's good for accordé to nuclear facilities, nuclear plants. And one more sentence.
Okay, we call for the withdrawal of Russian armed forces in the nuclear plant.
Yeah, from the nuclear plant, right?
From the nuclear plant, okay.
Okay, Elsa, turn it over to you. Cette situation constitue.
This situation is a serious threat to the safety and security of Ukrainian nuclear installations.
But still, I mean, yeah, I think
facilities.
were
Okay,
more
yeah,
like to say in English, yeah.
It could lead to an accident or to a nuclear incident with a potential emission or release of radioactivity, of which the consequences would not stop at international borders that we recognize to be of Ukraine.
The internationally recognized borders.
Okay, thank you. The internationally recognized borders of Ukraine, and could last through many generations.
Okay, just one thing I'd say, let's see, is what did you say for constitute?
I think I just said what did I say? Constitutes.
Okay, I mean you could say is.
Okay.
The situation or poses if it's a threat, a grave threat to the safety and security Ukrainian nuclear facilities. It could lead to an accident, nuclear incident with a potential, I think, release of radioactivity. And you know, in French, this is always. I focus on this more with Spanish and breaking up the sentences. I find it's not as much of a problem in the French, but nevertheless, whenever I hear that don, that can always be a bit frightening, and that's always like seen as a good opportunity to break up a sentence. Its consequences wouldn't stop at the internationally recognized borders of Ukraine, could last for generations. Well, the way you said it was also fine, of which the consequences, often, you know, whose is the word that's maybe the go-to word, but don is certainly one of those words that is often used as a sort of place to break up a longer sentence. So it's up to you how you do it. No, okay. Let's go on. Let's clear that. And if anyone's got any questions, please do stop me and ask as we're going along. Okay, go on. La Suisse félicite.
Switzerland congratulates the Director General of the agency for their tireless efforts, which have finally led to a support mission and to help from the IAEA towards
this mission is une mission d'appui et d'assistance, so that's like that's like a sort of package. Yes, Switzerland would you say congratulates or
yes,
congratulates, commends, applauds. Always good. You want to have a full set of potential synonyms there. You'd probably just say the DG. You know, Switzerland congratulates the DG and the agency for their tireless efforts, which have finally enabled the allowed us to send a support and assistance mission from the IAEA to Zaporizhia. Go on.
We strongly uphold the seven indispensable pillars of nuclear safety and security as declared by the DG.
Yes, the seven. What do you say?
Outlined,
The seven
maybe?
key. I would just stick with support. We firmly support the seven key pillar. I think key pillars probably of nuclear safety and security. Yeah, as mentioned by the DG, as set out by the DG. Go on.
They should be observed under all circumstances, including during armed conflict, in order to guarantee at any time the safe and secure use of nuclear facilities.
Yes, I think it's all good. Yeah.
Switzerland supports the suggestion from the DG to establish a protection zone for the safety and security for the nuclear safety and security around the Zaporizhia power plant.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So because now in the French, you see it's the full. You know, they talk about protection and sûreté and sécurité. I can't remember who was mentioning it before. So, I mean, I think if you probably called it like a nuclear security protection zone, that's the sort of thing that if they had mentioned it long enough, you just find your own way of just getting the message across. You know, like a nuclear security protection zone. Proposition. I mean, I would just stick with proposal. It's probably I say that just because it's easier in English because it's like propose. You know, proposition. Proposal, rather than having to make the added little effort in your brain to turn that into suggestion. And then just finish. Nous saluons.
We equally welcome the continued presence of the agency in this at this plant.
At this facility, whatever. At the plant. Anyone else now? Somebody else. Anyone else here? Who's that? Oh, Hannah. Yes, absolutely. Go ahead.
Okay. Switzerland reiterates its steadfast support for the Global Common Action Plan.
This is where it gets interesting. So I was thinking, what the f***'s that? I mean, I would have done exactly the same, the Global Common Action Plan. If I hadn't known anything, if I hadn't known better, I'd have just called it that. Now, can someone actually tell me what is the PAGC? It's much more important than that.
Earlier, is it the JC?
That's what the French call the JCPOA.
Oh,
yeah. I was like, what? I thought I'll look it up just on the off chance. I'll see what it is. I was like, oh, fuck, it's the JCPOA. See if they'd given me that, and I wouldn't have got that. So that's a really important thing to know. That is that's what the French call the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. Okay, watch out for that one. So go on.
Okay. The upholding of this agreement remains fundamental for the global non-nuclear proliferation and international security regime.
Yeah, just so non-nuclear non-proliferation.
Nuclear non-proliferation.
Non-proliferation. You want the non-proliferation together.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It is in our shared interest.
No, you can say a collective.
Okay. We urge affected parties, after months of intense diplomatic work, to reach a quick conclusion in negotiations and resolve pending questions without further ado.
No, that's good. Yeah, the parties, again, concerné, you could probably just drop the part. I say the parties concerned, but just the parties. One sec. After months of intensive diplomatic work to reach a rapid, a swift, speedy conclusion to negotiations, resolve pending. What's a good synonym for pending as well?
Upcoming.
While awaiting,
Say again? I think David said something. Yeah.
I said while awaiting.
Outstanding.
Outstanding. Okay, so
Outstanding,
remember
okay.
outstanding and pending as a sort of little package of synonyms. Okay, any outstanding issues sans plus attendre. Without further ado, you can say forthwith. That's a very high register sort of way. That's a very high register solution. Immediately, whatever. Without delay. What? Okay. Go on.
We also remain gravely concerned by Iran's decision to suspend the provisional application of its additional protocol and to end the implementation of other transparency measures linked to the GCPOA.
GCPOA, yeah, that's good. Keep going.
This suspension has a considerable impact on the ability of the agency to verify that Iran's activities are exclusively of civilian nature and questions the ability of the agency to maintain the continuity of its knowledge.
Of its knowledge, yeah. Calls into question, casts doubt. Got a couple of synonyms there. Okay. Does someone else want to have a go? If not, then I'll give it back to David?
Yes, please. Yes.
I could also have a
Okay.
go.
Who's
All
that?
right.
Was that
That was
Katerina?
Katerina, yes.
Oh, why don't you have a go? So, David, I'll come back to you. We'll give Katerina
Okay.
let her do this bit, okay?
Switzerland is also vividly preoccupied by the lack of cooperation of Iran with respect to the open questions in matters of guarantees.
Okay, let me just stop you. Just let me stop you there. I would so vivement préoccupé. I would say you're gravely concerned. I'm always troubled. I'm always troubled by things. Gravely troubled, seriously concerned. Okay, a guarantee. Okay, this is an important thing when it comes to all things nuclear, especially the IAEA. Guarantee is what? Can someone help me? Especially maybe Hannah, Elsa, or David.
Safeguards.
Safeguards. Who said that?
Ekaterina.
Oh, very good, Katerina. Very good. Safeguards for Garon. When they talk about, they have the safeguard treaty. The IAEA, it's all to do with safeguards. All right. Go on, Katerina.
After more than 2 years, it is now time to give to the agency credible and satisfactory responses.
Yep.
We exhort Iran to immediately cooperate in a constructive manner with the IAEA in order to resolve the questions that have not been resolved.
Okay,
so I have too many resolved. The open questions.
Open, okay. Exhortant, I always urge, whenever I hear exhortant in French, I always go with urge. We urge Iran to cooperate fully, constructively with the IAEA. If you struggle to say the acronym, the IAEA, you just say the agency. So whichever's easiest for you, to resolve all, again, like we had before, pending or outstanding issues would be probably the two best adjectives to go for. Go on.
We seek of Iran to respond to the questions of the agency that are still pending.
They're using this a lot, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
And to provide without further ado all the information and documents that are deemed necessary by the Secretariat. That's
right. Yeah, we call on Iran to respond, to reply to all 8 questions from the agency that's still pending, and to provide without further ado, again, forthwith, information and documents, jugé, like what you said, deemed necessary by the Secretariat. Okay. David, let's go back to you then. La Suisse reste profondément préoccupée.
Okay, thank you. Switzerland remains deeply concerned.
Yeah.
Given the continuation of nuclear and ballistic activities in the Popular Democratic Republic of Congo.
No, not the Congo. No.
Okay, of Korea. Sorry.
Okay.
In violation of the relevant UN Security Council resolutions.
Okay, just give me just 1 second. So profoundly, deeply concerned, I like that, at the pursuit or the continuation of the nuclear and ballistic missile programs of, okay, so what do we call, what's the official name of that country? Somebody in English. It's not popular.
DPRK.
Oh, no, it is. DPRK. Sorry, I think it is popular. The DPR. So we call them the DPRK. Okay, that's just the easiest.
Okay.
By the DPRK. In violation of the relevant Security Council resolutions. You see, here I would just drop the Nations Unies if I was interpreting, to be honest, if it was a fast speaker, because everyone
Okay.
knows what the Security Council is, you know. So, on you go.
We call on the DPRK to take concrete measures towards completely abandoning verifiable and irreversible nuclear arms, its ballistic missiles and related programs, to end all related activities.
All related activities. So I would say, so nous demandons instamment. I mean, that's a classic. We urge. I mean, in one, you know, you can synthesize that whole nous demandons instamment. We urge the DPRK to take concrete again. This like tangible steps. I prefer rather than concrete to abandoning completely verifiably and irreversibly, or in a or actually no, this I think it's the comprehensive. In a comprehensive, verifiable, and irreversible manner is probably the best way of saying. I would imagine, you know, again, if it's a fast speaker, you might have to drop one of those adjectives, but they will often, I think, come as a package. You know, I'm trying to think if they talk about complete or comprehensive. You could probably say either. To abandon, say, comprehensively, verifiably, and irreversibly, it's nuclear weapons. Don't say arms, nuclear weapons, it's ballistic missiles and related programs, and to cease all activities related thereto.
Okay.
I'd go on, just do the next sentence as well.
We urge the DPRK to revisit the TNP and its safeguards, the safeguards of the IAEA as quickly as possible. We equally urge them to sign and ratify the complete nuclear ban treaty, the complete nuclear test ban treaty.
Okay, yeah, you need to get the names of you need to know these treaties, right? So we urge the DPRK to return to the NPT. I think because I think perhaps they were in it before, but and then they left it perhaps. So they want DPRK to return. Katarina's nodding. Is that right? Were they formerly a party and then they left?
I think so. I'll just have to check, but there's something
that would
in the
make
back of my
sense
mind
from
says yes.
That just because they say revenir, that would make sense. To return to the NPT and to the so les garanties, so the safeguards. You need to know that again for your IAEA stuff. The IAEA safeguards as soon as possible. We also urge them. You see, I like how you threw in the them. We urge them to sign and ratify the CTBT, so the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. So again, that's one of those acronyms.
Sorry,
you need to be.
It's true. Korea was a part of the NPT, and then they left in order to pursue their own program. So.
Okay, when was that? Do you have
2015?
Oh, is that recently?
No, it's 1985. They joined, in 2003 they withdrew.
Oh, is that right? Oh, there you go.
It's a long time ago. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Let's. We've got a little bit left. Yeah. Let's go back to. Was it Elsa? Were you next in line, as it were?
It can be.
Let's. So la Suisse appelle également.
Right. Switzerland equally calls upon Syria to fully cooperate with the agency in order to resolve all outstanding questions with regards to the Deir al-Zor site and all related sites.
Good. Également, I wouldn't say equally. I'd say just also. That sounds également sounds a bit of a cheat sort of thing. Yeah. So just also calls on Syria to fully cooperate. Right. Go on.
Mm-hmm. Switzerland supports any and all efforts seeking to make the most of to improve upon the safeguarding systems in order for the limited resources that the agency has to be made the most of.
Okay, yeah.
Clean.
So supports the efforts. I think in English it's towards for visonta. I mean, supports efforts towards further. Now here, I think you can optimizing. I think that's in English a perfectly reasonable word to use, to further optimizing the safeguards system. Because there's a whole protocol, a whole agreement, the safeguards agreement. So so that the limited resources. There's also, limited is that's an easy word to go for, and it's perfectly okay. They also talk about scarce resources, scant resources.
Finite?
So sometimes that's taking things a bit, that's finite. I'd say scarce or scant are good.
Okay.
Yeah, and limited are a good sort of little package. Finite's maybe taking a bit, having to make too much of a leap to get that.
Yeah.
That the agency has to be made the most of, to be used in the best way, to be to be made the most of. Go on. Nous avons par conséquent.
As a result, we have rejoined last year the Member States Support Programme in order to help the agency meet its challenges in the area of nuclear verification in the years to come.
Yes, that sounds good. So yeah, the support program for member states to help the agency meet relever les défis. That's very important, obviously, collocation to be familiar with in the field of nuclear verification in the years to come, in future years. Keep going.
President, the Convention on, this looks like it has a thing. Can I just say the CPPMN?
No.
No, okay.
No one would.
The convention,
unless they'd really been, if you're in the meeting and if that's what everyone had been saying up to this point, I guess but that's the French acronym as well. So I don't know, I think in English it's probably got a different acronym. So
yeah. All right. The Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Materials has been in effect. What do we say?
In force.
Entered
force, or has been in force.
Has been in force for the last 35 years, including its amendment 6 years ago. Switzerland celebrates or is proud of
so se félicite, I will tend to to welcome, commends, applauds. So we're going back to that sort of that bundle of synonyms.
Yeah. Switzerland applauds the agency for calling together the first conference of the parties on the amendment to the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Materials at the beginning of this year.
Okay, so for convocation, if you're going with the French, Switzerland welcomes the convening or the summoning. So those are the two words I will usually go with for that, by the agency of the first conference, I guess you call it a COP, the first conference of parties to the amendment to the Convention on the Physical Protection of Nuclear Materials at the start of this year. Go on.
Switzerland and Nigeria had the honor of co-chairing this conference. We would like to once again thank the Secretariat for their excellent support that they have shown us all throughout this process.
Okay, to stop there. They have qu'ils nous ont apporté. The one thing I'd say there is, in English, it'd be perfectly all right to say, we want to thank once again the Secretariat for their excellent support throughout this process. So again, you want to just think on your feet, because in English, you don't really need to say that they have provided to us. Again, if you're in a hurry, that's the sort of thing you can just think, okay, I don't really actually need to say that in English. And then Hannah, let's, you want to have a last go as we finish this one, okay? La conférence a été un succès.
Okay, the conference was a success. And the final document was adopted by consensus, contributing to the continuation of the universalization of the convention and its amendments.
Just interesting, you see so final document, often in the UN they'll talk about outcome documents. I mean, you can say final, but outcome, they often talk about outcome documents at the UN.
Okay. Their request by a majority of parties to, forgot the word to use now. I can't remember the word to use. Convene.
Yes.
To convene the next examination conference establishes the foundations for a strengthened and sustainable treaty regime.
Okay, so yeah, conférence d'examen is a review conference. Okay, that's that sort of terminology you really need to have down pat. A RevCon, okay. Établit les bases, paves the way, sets the stage. Are the sort of solutions I go for there. Very quickly, just do one more sentence.
Okay.
Then we're gonna.
Switzerland welcomes the continuous increase in the number of countries welcoming international examination missions in the area of nuclear safety and security.
Okay, I'll just yeah, the ever growing number of countries. Accueillons, what's better than maybe welcoming?
Hosting.
Okay. International, okay, missions. Examen par les pairs. That's an important idea.
Peer review.
Peer review, okay. So they're international peer review missions. Although again, because of the way it would be, you'd be hearing, you'd probably say for hosting international missions for peer review in the sphere of nuclear safety and security. Okay, so we're going to stop.
Is it better to do that?
Well, I mean, it depends.
Is it better to do that and sound a bit strange, or just miss it?
It's better. I think it's better to do it and then get all the stuff, as more stuff in, rather than risking it.
Okay.
Again, it depends. It just, so many things. If I was playing safe, if I was in an exam and I was feeling a bit nervous, I'd probably just be focusing on getting the information out, rather than really sounding fancy. Because if you can try and sound really great, but then there's that risk that you miss the first couple of words, which are often the most important ones. So
okay.
Yeah, it's a decision you have to make yourself in the moment as you're doing it. Okay, so it's back to me, ladies and gentlemen. So just to clarify, what we were talking about at the end there with Hannah. So I was, it was this, it was the name of this mechanism here, les missions internationales. Oopsie daisy. Mission internationale d'examen par les pairs. Now, obviously, in English, if an English speaker would call these presumably international peer review missions. Okay, and so she was wondering what if it was better to wait. Basically, having to wait till you hear the word pair before you say that all in English. Sounds very nice if you can get it. Or to just break it down. I would have probably said you see something like international missions for peer review, which doesn't sound quite as nice as international peer review missions. However, the danger is if you wait till you hear the word pair, you start going international peer review, and then you suddenly forget what the hell was the first word. Was it a mechanism? Was it an initiative? Was it a document? It was a mission, obviously. Now that's really important. These were missions. So this has happened to me on mic. This has happened to me in the booth where I've tried to show off, and then I've ended up losing the first word or two. And so you have to decide yourself if how confident you are. Can you wait till the end to then reel it off in beautiful English, give it a beautiful English sounding name, or do you just play safe and break it up into more manageable bite-sized chunks, which all admittedly don't sound quite as nice, but there you have it. So I think I would perhaps err on the side of caution, certainly if I was in an exam. Okay, so let me finish off then this statement. Starting from nous encourageons tous les États membres. So I would say as follows. So we encourage all member states, particularly those with nuclear energy programs, to regularly host. So for accueillir, I think in this context, host is the best word, to host such missions, including follow-up reviews, examen de suivi, follow-up reviews. I guess you could also see to receive such missions, we could say as well. I think host is the best, though. In October 2021, Switzerland hosted, well, why not? Let's receive this time. Switzerland received an IRRS mission. That is a Service Intégré d'Examen de la Réglementation. Now, if you didn't know what this was, and I wouldn't have known what this was, I'd have probably called it, Integrated Service for Regulation Review. You'd have probably said. Now, the actual name of this it's called an Integrated Regulatory Review Service mission. Okay. That's what this mechanism is called. Integrated Regulatory Review Service. And is working currently on implementing the conclusions or findings. Okay, findings is a very good synonym for conclusion. Whenever you talk about a report or a mission, the findings or conclusions of this mission. Okay, maybe there might be a little nuance and difference in certain contexts, but generally they're pretty interchangeable and good synonyms to have, findings and conclusions. In October and November 2023, Switzerland will also be hosting a IPPAS mission, Service Consultatif International sur la Protection Physique. So it's probably International Advisory Service on Physical Protection, if I had to hazard a guess. And it is in fact called an International Physical Protection Advisory Service. Sometimes with consultative, certain contexts it goes advisory, sometimes consultative. Again, if you didn't know what that was, and if they just gave you the name, your best bet would probably be to just say an International Advisory Service on Physical Protection mission. Faisons suite, following up on their mission back in 2018. President Switzerland attend avec intérêt, just looks forward to the 8th and 9th joint review meeting of the parties contractantes, just the contracting parties, to the Nuclear Safety Convention in March. So a lot of mechanisms that the Swiss are referencing here. And this one is actually called in English the Convention on Nuclear Safety. So it's actually similar, like the French. Okay, so the CNS it's called. So there you have the page. Convention on Nuclear Safety. Aims to commit contracting parties operating land-based civil nuclear plants to maintain a high level of safety, establishing fundamental safety principles to which states would subscribe. Convention is based on the parties' common interest to achieve high levels of safety that will be developed and promoted through regular meetings. It obliges parties to submit reports on the implementation of their obligations for peer review. There's that expression again, okay? At meetings that are normally held at IAEA headquarters, this mechanism is the main innovative and dynamic element of the convention. So the Convention on Nuclear Safety. Yes, as we said before, Réunion d'Examen is always a review conference, or a RevCon if you want the shortcut. We will be taking an active part there, and we will seek to achieve an ambitious result. Now, it's funny, when I was when I was studying to become an interpreter, we're told that for ambitieux, that it was always better to say far-reaching results. And I have, as a rule, when I hear ambitieux, I do tend to say far-reaching. I'm told that the meaning's not completely the same in English as in French. Although I think in this context that you could say an ambitious result, and it would work perfectly fine. So anyway, have that though far-reaching. I often have that as a solution for ambitieux in French. We hope that this meeting will allow us to further bolster the effective implementation of the CNS and of the Vienna Declaration on Nuclear Safety. So just remember, in French, thankfully, it's much more straightforward, the issue of sécurité and sûreté Okay, security is security, sûreté is safety. It's not like in Spanish and French. If you watch the previous episode, we had quite a bit of a debate over what word was used in Spanish to express safety as opposed to security. And they basically, they talk about technological security on the one hand, which is like safety, and physical security, which is security. So, but anyway, in French, it's much more clear cut. Furthermore, Switzerland would like to thank the agency for its précieux soutien. I would say valuable support here sooner than precious. Valuable support during the Swiss presidency of the 7th RevCon on the joint convention, which took place this year in June. The contracting parties considered, examined, explored, for examiner, a number of questions transversales. Okay, that's a popular, that word comes up a lot at the UN and generally in politics. Cross-cutting, I think, is your best solution there. Intersecting issues, perhaps, is another alternative. Anyway, I tend to go with cross-cutting. Cross-cutting issues linked to the safety of the management of combustible usé. Okay, this is an important concept. Spent fuel, okay? Spent fuel and radioactive waste, and have reached an agreement. So yeah, you want to remember that, okay? These two often come in a package, the idea of spent fuel and radioactive waste. And it didn't actually come up in the Spanish version that we did with Chile, but in Spanish they talk about combustible gastado, okay? FYI, that's useful to know. And if you're wondering what the solution is in Russian, well, I suggest you watch episode 159, because it will get mentioned in the Russian statement there. President, Switzerland appreciates the contribution of the activities of the agency in the field of science, technology, and nuclear applications. These activities are essential, are crucial, with a view to achieving the SDGs. Okay, that's an acronym you can go straight into. We welcome, nous nous réjouissons, we commend the signing of a practical arrangement between the Swiss Federal Institute of Science and Technologies for water and the agency in the margins of the General Conference. So here again is one of these mechanisms, one of these Swiss. This is a domestic body that the Swiss have created, and its actual full name is. Now, handily enough, the Swiss actually provided an English version also of this statement, so I can tell you the exact name of this Institut Fédéral. So it's actually the Swiss Federal Institute for Aquatic Sciences and Technology. So you'd be doing well to get the exact name. But again, it's one of those cases that if they're just reading it out, you would probably just, break it up. The Swiss Federal Institute for Sciences and Water. I would probably say for Sciences and Water Technology, let's say. Okay, then this cooperation will allow us to mettre au point, to develop, sometimes fine-tune, craft, let's say develop maps indicating the vulnerability of aquifers in Africa, and will include a specialized analysis of noble gases. In conclusion, I want to highlight une étape importante franchie. Now, obviously, when you hear étape, you're probably going to say, or at least I do, I tend to sort of default to stage, okay? But then whenever you hear franchi, now the thing is in English, you don't really take a stage, right? You tend to take a step. So what happens is I'll usually turn it into maybe, I would like to highlight an important step that was recently taken, or if you've already said stage, a stage that was recently reached. I think we reach stages, but we take steps. So these are important little collocations to be able to play around with a little bit, okay? So I would probably say here, I would conclude in highlighting the important step recently taken in Switzerland concerning the construction, the building of a dépôt en couche géologique profonde. Now this is the depot here is a repository, a deep geological strata repository. So couche usually, obviously, I would usually render as layer, but obviously this is actually, because we're talking about geological formations here, the word you're after is strata. Stratum in the singular, strata in the plural, like the Latin, presumably. So this is a repository for deep geological strata prévu pour les déchets radioactifs. So I guess you'd say, earmarked for radioactive waste. Otherwise, depot, you hear a depot. Sometimes it can be a depot. Sometimes we say in English a depot, a warehouse, storage facility. You just have to do your best. Obviously, you're going to, Also, repository is, again, another one of those words. It does get used, so it's good to have it in your orbit, at least. And then, yes, another one of these Swiss institutions, la Société Coopérative Nationale pour le Stockage des Déchets Radioactifs. I would probably say the National Cooperative Society for the Stockpiling of Radioactive Waste, if I was, again, hearing that and just trying to ride with it. What do the Swiss actually call it? Its real name is National Cooperative for the Disposal of Radioactive Waste. So in fact, pour le stockage, they say for the disposal of. So the French would make you think it's there for collection, let's say. So in English, it's for the disposal of radioactive waste. Has announced which geological underground site offers, compared to other domaines d'implémentation, presumably other sites, other locations qui ont fait l'objet d'une analyse approfondie. So a good word to have here for faire l'objet is undergo. So for other locations, other sites that have undergone an in-depth analysis, the best effects in terms of a geological barrier, the greatest stability of rocky strata, and heightened flexibility for the creation of an underground repository. So that is very technical vocabulary. Let's see what the Swiss actually gave us in their English version. It offers the best geological barrier effect, excuse me, the best stability of the rock layers, and a high degree of flexibility for the layout of the underground repository compared with other suitable sites. So they talk about layers for couche. And NAGRA will now be preparing requests for general authorization before submitting them in the next 2 years or so to the Federal Energy Office. Apparently the Swiss call it the Swiss Federal Office of Energy. Whatevs. The competent federal authorities in the field of safety will conduct a detailed examination of the files. According to current planning, the repository could start entrer en fonction, could start working, or maybe in English we would say could be operational by 2050. I thank you. So there you go. That's the rest. It's a lot of, it's different, this Swiss one. It's got a lot of these national institutions, national mechanisms, projects going on, whatever, which you have to sort of deal with somehow when you're going into English. So it's good practice, that one as well. And obviously, I will, in the description box, I will leave the link to the site with the original video of the whole meeting, as well as it also includes all the transcripts as well. So, guys, I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you found some of that interesting. I hope you've learned some new words, some new geological expressions, perhaps. Underground geological repositories. There you go. I didn't know about them. New to me as well. So if you have liked it, please do smash the like button, share, comment. Please do comment. And I'll be back very soon. I'll have the Russian segment of that Sunday at 6 workshop with you in the next few days. So that all that leaves me to say right now there is that episode 158 of the Interpretation Station stands adjourned.
The train is now leaving the interpretation